Hello, I am. There we go. I am recording. Hello. Um, I already had one person. Let me see if it's changed. But, I don't know if it's a bot or not. But someone commented on my latest video. No, not history. Um, wow. Yeah, I think it's this one. Let me see. Yeah, it says on the first 13 Reasons Why uh, video, it's like, howdy, Meece. It is a mesmerizing video. Thanks. That seems pretty, like, not bottish. So, thank you. Thank you so much. Colorized, enhanced, silent movies. Thank you. You joined 4 days ago. Cool. Well, thank you so much. I hope you enjoy more of the reading. Yeah. Oh, I ate so much food. Okay. There we go. I'm gonna put my phone down there. Last we left off was she was talking about being stalked. Oh, I want to mention that there were differences. I don't know if I'm pretty sure I didn't talk about them. Uh, but court when they were trying to sabotage the the stalker, who was Tyler. Um, they had Hannah and Courtney got drunk, and then they were just, playing along, and then they had kissed, and uh, Tyler had taken a picture of that. Though both their faces were obscure, they didn't. Basically, that photo went around school. I don't know how. It wasn't Tyler directly that sent that around, but a lot of people saw it. And Courtney, she decided to avoid Hannah because she didn't want to get, involved in that. And she was hiding the fact that she was gay herself. Um, and it was originally Hannah took Courtney and her friends to the dance that she also went to with. And then one of the guys there had said he had seen a picture and knew it was them. So Courtney was just trying to, you know, downplay it or something like that. So that was something really interesting that I guess I forgot to mention. Last session. But that's also a cool comparison. Gonna mute this because I don't care. Okay. So now we are off to the 6th reason. So, respectively, the next chapter is called Cassette 3, Side B. Play. How many of you remember the Oh My Dollar Valentines? How many of us would rather forget? Those were fun, weren't they? You fill out a survey, a computer analyzes your answers, then it cross-references with the other surveys. Just for $1, you get the name and number of your one true soulmate. For $5, you get your top 5, and hey, all proceeds go to a worthy cause. Cheer camp. Cheer camp. Each morning over the loudspeaker came the cheery announcements. Don't forget, there's only 4 more days to turn in your surveys. Only 4 more lonely days until your true love is revealed. And every morning, a new peppy cheerleader continued the countdown. Only 3 more days. Only 2 more days. Only 1 more day. Today's the day. For every foot of sidewalk I put between Tyler's house, Marcus and me, the muscles in my shoulders relax a little more. Then the whole squad of cheerleaders sang, "Oh my dollar, oh my dollar, oh my dollar, Valentine." This, of course, was followed by whoops and hollers and cheers. I always imagined them doing kicks and splits and tossing their pom-poms around the attendance office. I walked by the attendance office once on an errand for a teacher, and that's exactly what they were doing. And yes, I did fill out my survey. I've been a sucker for surveys my whole life. If you ever caught me reading one of those teen magazines, I swear, it wasn't for the makeup tips. It was for the surveys. Because you never wore makeup, Hannah. You didn't need it. Fine, some of the hair and makeup tips were helpful. You wore makeup? But I only picked the magazines up for the surveys. The tips were a bonus. Do you remember those career surveys we had to fill out freshman year? The ones that were supposed to help us choose electives? According to my survey, I'd make a wonderful lumberjack. And if that survey didn't work out, and if that career didn't work out, I could use my fallback career as an astronaut. An astronaut or a lumberjack? An astronaut or a lumberjack? Seriously? Thanks for the help. I don't remember my fallback career, but I got the lumberjack too. I tried figuring out why the test saw that was my best career path. True, I marked down that I like the outdoors, but who doesn't? It doesn't mean I like cutting down trees. The Valentine survey was a 2-parter. First, you described yourself, hair color, eye color, height, body type, favorite type of music and movie. Then you put a check beside your top 3 things to do on the weekends. Which is funny because whoever designed the list forgot to mention drinking and sex, which would have been the most accurate response for most of our student body. In all, there were about 20 questions, and I know, based on who appeared on my list, that not everyone answered honestly. In the middle of the sidewalk, beneath a street lamp, is a dark green metal bench. At one time, maybe this was a bus stop, but now it's just a bench to relax on, for old people or anyone too tired to walk. For me. For part 2 of the survey, it was your turn to describe what you were looking for in a soulmate. Their height, their body type, if they're athletic or not, shy, outgoing. I sit on the cold metal and lean forward. dropping my head into my hands. Only a handful of blocks of home, and I don't know where to go. Oh no, only a handful of blocks from home, and I don't know where to go. As I filled mine out, I found myself describing a certain someone at our school. I should have answered my survey honestly. You would think that my answers all described one person. That person would have at least appeared. Uh, yeah, I should have answered my survey seriously. If you think that my answers all described one person, that person would have at least appeared in my top 5. But that person had been immune to the cheerleaders and their cheers because he didn't end up on my list anywhere. And no, I'm not telling you his name yet. For fun, I filled mine out as Holden Caulfield from The Catcher in the Rye. That semester's required reading, and the first person to come to mind. Holden. What a horrible first date that depressed. What a horrible first date that depressed loner would make. The moment the surveys were distributed in third period history, I bubbled in my answers. There sure were some weird names on my list. Exactly the sort of people I'd expect to fall for a Holden Caulfield. It was your typical day in Coach Patrick's history class. Decipher a bunch of notes scribbled on the board probably 5 minutes before class started. Then copy them down in your notebook. If you finish before the end of class, you read 8 pages if you finish before the end of class, read pages 8 through 194 in your textbook. And don't fall asleep. And no talking. How was I to know every single one of those girls would call me? I assume everyone at school saw the survey as a joke. Just a fundraiser for cheer camp. After class, I walked straight to the student body office. At the end of the counter, closest to the door, was the drop-off box. A large shoe box with a slit cut in the top and decorated with cut-out pink and red hearts. The red hearts had "Oh My Dollar Valentine" written on them. The pink ones had green dollar signs. I folded my survey in half, slipped it into the box, then turned around to leave. But Miss Benson, smiley as usual, was standing right there. "Hannah Baker?" she said. "I didn't know you and Courtney Crimson were friends." Hold on. I'm trying to remember who Miss Benson was. I think she might have been one of the teachers. Yeah. But Miss Benson, smiley as usual, was standing right there. "Hannah Baker?" she said. "I didn't know you and Courtney Crimson were friends." The look on my face must have expressed exactly what I was thinking, because right away she backpedaled. "At least that's what I figured. That's what it looked like. I mean, you are friends, aren't you?" That lady is beyond nosy. My first thought was of Tyler, standing outside my window, and I was furious. Was he actually showing off those peeping Tom photos to Miss Benson? No, Miss Benson told me she had delivered some checks to the yearbook room that morning. Taped to the walls were sample shots that might appear in the yearbook. One particular photo was of Courtney and me. You guessed it, the one from the party, with my arm around her waist, looking like I was having the time of my life. Quite an actress, Hannah. I told her, no, we're just acquaintances. Well, it's a really fun picture, Miss Benson said. And these next words I remember exactly. The wonderful thing about a yearbook photo is that everyone shares the moment with you. Forever. It sounded like something she'd said a million times before. And before I probably would have agreed, but not with that photo. Anyone looking at that photo would definitely not be sharing our moment. They could not come close to imagining my thoughts in that picture, or Courtney's, or Tyler's. Everything about it was false. Right then, in that office, with the realization that no one knew the truth about my life, my thoughts about the world were shaken. Like driving along a bumpy road and losing control of the steering wheel, tossing you just a tad off the road. The wheels kick up some dirt, but you're able to pull it back. Yet, no matter how tightly you grip the wheel, no matter how hard you try to drive straight, something keeps jerking you to the side. You have so little control over anything anymore. And at some point, the struggle becomes too much, too tiring, and you consider letting go, allowing tragedy or whatever to happen. Pressing my fingertips hard against my hairline, my thumbs pressing my fingertips hard against my hairline, my thumbs against my temples. I squeeze. In that picture, I'm sure Courtney was wearing a beautiful smile. Fake, but beautiful. She wasn't, but you couldn't know. See, Courtney thought she could jerk me around wherever she wanted, but I didn't let that happen. I jerked myself back on the road just long enough to push her off, if only for a moment. But now, the survey for Valentine's Day, was this just another chance to get thrown off the road? Was this survey for the guys who found my name on their list going to be the excuse they needed to ask me out? And would they be extra excited about doing that because of the rumors they'd heard? I looked at the slit in the top of the shoebox, too thin to squeeze my fingers through. But I could lift off the top and take out my survey. It'd be so easy. Miss Benson would ask why, and I could pretend I was embarrassed about filling out a love survey. She'd understand. Or I would wait and see. If I had been smart, if I had been honest with my survey, I would have described Hannah. And maybe we would have talked. Seriously talked. Not just joking around like last summer at the movie theater. But I didn't do that. I wasn't thinking that way. Yeah, if you don't already guess it, Clay was, I think, unless it gets more into the book about it, they spent a lot of time together when they were working at the movie theater together. And he had gotten to know her at least some bit. And he loved her. I don't know if it's going to get into detail here, but if you can't already guess, he was in fact in love with her, or in really strong like, which really sucks. But yeah. But I didn't do that. I wasn't thinking that way. Would most students, as I expected, get their lists and just have a good laugh, thinking nothing of it? Or would they use it? Hold on. Let me get some. Or would they use it? If Hannah's name and number had shown up on my list, would I have called her? I slouched down into the cold bench, leaning my head back, far back, like the tip of my spine might burst if I keep going. Very little, I told myself, could go wrong. The survey was a joke. No one's going to use it. Calm down, Hannah. You are not setting yourself up. But if I was right, if I called it correctly, if I willingly gave someone an excuse to test those rumors about me, well, I don't know. Maybe I'd shrug it off. Maybe I'd get pissed. Or maybe I would let go and give up. This time, for the first time, I saw the possibilities in giving up. I even found hope in it. Ever since Kat's going away party, I couldn't stop thinking about Hannah. How she looked, how she acted, how it never matched up with what I heard. But I was too afraid to find out for sure. Too afraid she might laugh if I asked her out. Just too afraid. So what were my options? I could leave the office a pessimist and take my survey with me, or I could leave it as an optimist and hope for the best. In the end, I walked out of that office with my survey still in the box, unsure of what I was. An optimist? A pessimist? Neither? A fool? I closed my eyes, concentrating on the cool air floating around me. When I went into the movie theater last summer for a job application, I pretended to be surprised that Hannah worked there, but she was the whole reason I applied. Today's the day, the cheerleader said, cheerfully, of course. Pick up your oh my dollar Valentines at the student body office. Yeah, pick up your oh my dollar Valentines at the student body office today. On my first day at work, they placed me in the concession stand with Hannah. She showed me how to pump butter toppings into the popcorn. She said that if someone I had a crush on came in, I shouldn't put butter in the bottom half of the tub. That way, halfway through the movie, they'd come back asking for more. And then there wouldn't be so many people around and we could talk. But I never did that. Because it was Hannah I was interested in. And the thought that she did that for other guys made me jealous. I hadn't decided yet if I wanted to find out who the survey matched me up with. With my luck, it'd be a fellow lumberjack. But when I walked by the office and found no one standing in line, I thought, what the hell? I went up to the counter and started saying my name, but the cheerleader at the computer cut me off. Thanks for supporting the cheerleaders, Hannah. She tilted her head to one side and smiled. That sounded dumb, right? But I'm supposed to say it to everyone. It was probably the same cheerleader who gave me my survey results. She asked my name. She typed my name into the computer, hit enter, then asked how many names I wanted, 1 or 5. I placed a $5 bill on the counter. She hit the number 5 key, and a print on my side of the counter spit out my list. She told me they put the printer on our side so the cheerleaders wouldn't be tempted to peek at our names, so people wouldn't feel embarrassed by who they got. I told her that was a good idea and started looking over my list. So, the cheerleader said, who'd you get? Definitely the cheerleader who helped me. She was joking, of course. No, she wasn't. Half joking. I placed my list on the counter for her to see. Not bad, she said. Oh, well, I like this one. I agreed that it wasn't a bad list, but not wonderful either. She lifted her shoulders and called my list a shrugger. Then she let me in on a little secret. It wasn't the most scientific of surveys, except for people seeking a depressed loner like Holden Caulfield. For that, the survey deserved a Nobel Prize. We both agreed that two names on the list matched me fairly well. Another name, one that I was pleased with, brought an entirely different reaction out of her. No, she said. Her expression, her posture, lost all its cheeriness. Trust me, no. Is he on one of your tapes, Hannah? Is that who this tape is about? Because I don't think this tape is about the cheerleader. But he's cute, I said. On the outside, she told me. She pulled out a stack of fives from the register, put mine on top, then went through the stack, turning each bill in some way. I didn't push the subject, but I should have. And in a couple more tapes, you'll know why. Which reminds me, I haven't told you who our main man is on this tape. Fortunately, this is the perfect time to introduce him, because that's exactly when he showed up. Again? Not me? Something started buzzing. A phone? I looked at the cheerleader, but she shook her head. So I swung my backpack onto the counter, fished out my phone, and answered it. Hannah Baker, the caller said. Good to see you. I looked at the cheerleader and shrugged. Who is this? I asked. Guess how I got your number, he said. I told him that I hated guessing games, so he told me I paid for it. You paid for my phone number? The cheerleader scooped her hand over her mouth and pointed at the printout, the Oh My Dollar Valentines. No way, I thought. Someone was actually calling because my name was on their list. Kind of exciting, yes, but kind of weird at the same time. The cheerleader touched the names we both thought were good matches, but I shook my head no. I knew those voices well enough to know it wasn't either of them. It also wasn't the one she warned me about. I read the other two names on my list out loud. It looks like you made my list. It looks like you made my list, the caller said, but I didn't make yours. Actually, you did make your list. A different list. One I'm sure you don't like being on. I asked him where on his list my name popped up. Again, he told me to guess, then quickly added that he was joking. Ready for this? He asked. You're my number one, Hannah. I mouthed his answer, number one, and the cheerleader hopped up and down. This is so cool, she whispered. The caller then asked what I was doing for Valentine's Day. Depends, I told him. Who are you? But he didn't answer. He didn't need to. Because at that moment, I saw him standing right outside the office window. Marcus Cooley. Hello, Marcus. I grit my teeth. Marcus. I should have hit him with the rock when I had the chance. Marcus, as you know, is one of the biggest goof-offs at school. Not a slacker goof-off, but a good goof-off. Guess again. He's actually funny. An endless number of painfully dull classes have been rescued by a perfectly timed holy pun. So naturally, I didn't take his words at face value. Even though he only stood a few feet away, separated by a window, I kept talking to him through the phone. "You're lying," I said. "I am not on your list." Excuse me. His normally goofy smirk at that moment looked kind of sexy. "What? You don't think I'm ever serious?" he asked. Then he pressed his list against the window. Even though I stood too far away to actually read it, I assumed he'd only hold it up to prove that my name did in fact hold his top spot. Still, I thought he must have been kidding about getting together for Valentine's Day, so I thought I'd make him squirm a bit. "Fine," I said. "When?" The cheerleader covered her face with both hands, but through her fingers I watched her skin blush. "I don't know. Without her as an audience egging me on, I doubt I would have agreed to go out with him that fast. But I was playing it up, giving her something to brag about at cheer practice." Now it was Marcus's turn to blush. "Oh, okay, well, how about Rosie's? You know, for ice cream." E5. I saw the star on the map while riding the bus. I knew roughly where it was. Not not which store specifically, but I should have guessed. The best ice cream and the greasiest burgers and fries around. Rosie's Diner. My words came out sarcastic. Ice cream? But I didn't mean them that way. An ice cream date sounded so cute. So I agreed to meet him there after school, and with that, we hung up. The cheerleader slapped her hands on the counter. You have absolutely got to let me brag about this." I made her promise not to tell anyone until the next day, just in case. "Fine," she said, but she made me promise to spill every last detail afterward. Some of you may know this cheerleader I've been talking about, but I'm not saying her name. She was very sweet and excited for me. She did nothing wrong. Honestly, no sarcasm there. Don't strain yourselves reading into my words. I wonder if it'll go into detail about who this... I don't think it will. But, in the series, there's a cheerleader also on this list. I will not tell you why, because we're going to get to that. That she was the one that gave her the list, and she was egging him on. And, she is also on the tapes. So maybe this, in the book, it's just a random cheerleader that gives her the thing and not... So it's like not all connected in a way. Not that she blames this cheerleader for what's gonna happen here. But yeah. Honestly. No sarcasm there. Don't strain yourselves reading into my words. Before, I thought I knew who the cheerleader was. But now, remembering the day we all found out about Hannah, I'm sure of it. Jenny Kurtz. We had... Hold on. I wonder if they changed some names. Hold on. Or maybe I'm just being me. Oh shit, yeah, I think they did change the name then. Because I remember uh, Clay, in the beginning, he said Jenny's gonna get a big surprise when she finds these tapes. And Jenny was a cheerleader, but in the series, it was changed to Sherry. Huh. I wonder why they changed the name of that. But cool. But yes, this is the same cheerleader that will be featured in another tape. Most probably. Most probably. Before, I thought I knew who the cheerleader was. But now... Oh, excuse me. But now, remembering the day we all found out about Hannah, I'm sure of it. Jenny Kurtz. We had biology together. By then, I'd already heard, but that's when she found out. Scalpel in hand, an earthworm sliced down the middle and pinned open before her. She put down the scalpel and fell into a long, stunned silence. Then she got up and, without stopping by the teacher's desk for a pass, walked out of the room. I kept looking for her the rest of that day, puzzled by her reaction. Like most people, I had no clue of her random connection to Hannah Baker. Did I tell the cheerleader about what happened at Rosie's? No. Instead, I avoided her for as long as I could, and you're about to find out why. Of course, I couldn't avoid her forever, which is why, in a little while, she'll make another appearance on these tapes, but with a name. Yeah, there we go. The cold air isn't the only reason I'm shivering anymore. With every side of every tape, an old memory gets turned upside down. A reputation twists into someone I don't recognize. I felt like crying when I watched Jenny walk out of biology. Every time I saw a reaction like that, with her, with Mr. Porter, it threw me back to the moment I found out about Hannah myself. When I did cry. When instead, I should have been angry at them. So, if you want the full Hannah experience, go to Rosie's for yourself. God, I hate not knowing what to believe anymore. I hate not knowing what's real. E5 on your map. Sit down on one of the stools at the counter. In a minute, I'll tell you what to do after seating yourself. But first, a little background on me and Rosie's. I had never gone there before that day. I know, it seems crazy. Everyone's been to Rosie's. It's the cool, quirky place to hang out. But as far as I know no one ever went there alone. And every time someone invited me, for some reason or another, I was busy. Family visiting from out of town, too much homework, always something. To me, Rosie's had an aura about it, a mystery. In the stories I heard, it seemed like things were always happening there. Alex Standall, his first week in town, had his first fight outside Rosie's front door. He told me and Jessica about it during our Monet's Garden Cafe period. When I heard about that fight, it came as advice not to mess with the new kid. Alex knew how to throw, as well as take a punch. A girl whose name I will not repeat had her very Yeah, a girl whose name I will not repeat had her first under the bra experience at Rosie's while making out between the pinball machines. Courtney Crimson. Everyone knew about that. It's not like Courtney tried to hide it. And with all of the stories, it seemed that Rosie turned a blind eye to anything going on as long as cones were being filled and burgers were being flipped. So I wanted to go, but I was not about to go alone and looked like a dork. Marcus coolly gave me the excuse I needed, and it just so happened that I was free. Free, but not stupid. I was a little wary of Marcus, a little suspicious, but not of him so much as the people he hung out with. People like Alex Standall. He also, well, he didn't really hang out with Alex that much in the series, but he hung out with like a lot of jocks. After peeling away from our Ollie Ollie Oxenfree group at Monet's, after peeling away from our Ollie Ollie Oxenfree group at Monet's, Alex started hanging out with Marcus. And after the little stone Alex pulled with the who's hot, who's not list, I didn't trust him. So why would I trust someone he hangs out with? Yeah, so why would I trust someone he hangs out with? You shouldn't. Why? Because that's exactly what I wanted for me. I wanted people to trust me, despite anything they'd heard. And more than that, I wanted them to know me. Not the stuff they put me through about, not the stuff they thought they knew about me. No, the real me. I wanted them to get past. I wanted them to get past the rumors, to see beyond the relationships I once had, or maybe still had, but that they didn't agree with. And if I wanted people to treat me that way, and if I wanted people to treat me that way, I had to do the same for them, right? So I walked into Rosie's and sat at the corner. When there you go. If so I walked into Rosie's and sat at the counter. And when you go there, if you go there, don't order right away. The phone in my pocket starts vibrating. Just sit and wait. And wait a little more. It's Mom. Pause. I answer the phone, but even the simplest words catch in my throat and I say nothing. Honey? Her voice is soft. Is everything all right? I close my eyes to concentrate, to speak calmly. I'm fine. But does she hear it? Clay, honey, it's getting late. She pauses. Where are you? I forgot to call. I'm sorry. It's okay. She hears it, but she won't ask. Do you want me to pick you up? I can't go home. Not yet. I almost tell her I need to stay till I'm done helping Tony with his school project. But I'm almost done with his tape, and I only have one more with me. Mom? Can you do me a favor? No response. I left some tapes on the workbench. For your project? Wait, but what if she listens to them? What if... to see what they are? She slides a tape into the stereo. What if it's Hannah talking about me? It's okay, never mind, I say. I'll get them. I can bring them to you. I don't answer. The words aren't caught in my throat. Yeah, the words aren't caught in my throat. I just don't know which ones to use. I'm heading out anyway, she says. We're out of bread and I'm making sandwiches for tomorrow. I exhale a tiny laugh and I smile. Hold on, just 1 second. God damn, it's fucking hot today. Yeah, I exhale a tiny laugh and I smile. Whenever I'm out late, she makes a sandwich for my school lunch. I always protest and tell her not to, saying I'll make my own when I get home. But she likes it. She says it reminds her of when I was younger and needed her. Just tell me where you are, she says. Leaning forward on the metal bench, I say the first thing that comes to mind. I'm at Rosie's. The diner? Are you getting work done there? She waits for an answer, but I don't have one. Doesn't it get loud? The street is empty. What the heck? I feel like something is on me. Maybe it's just the... Okay, no, there we go. Doesn't it get loud? The street is empty. No cars, no noise, no commotion in the background. She knows I'm not telling the truth. When are you gonna leave? I ask. As soon as I get the tapes. Great. I start walking. I'll see you soon. Play. Listen to the conversations around you. Are people wondering why you're sitting there alone? Now glance over your shoulder. Did a conversation stop? Did their eyes turn away? I'm sorry if this sounds pathetic, but you know it's true. You've never gone there by yourself, have you? I haven't. It's a totally different experience, and deep down you know the reason you've never gone alone. And deep down you know the reason you've never gone alone is the reason I just explained. But if you do go, and you don't order anything, everyone's going to think the same thing about you that they thought about me, that you're waiting for someone. So sit there, and every few minutes, glance at the clock on the wall. The longer you wait, and this is true, the slower the hands will move. Not today. When I get there, my heart is racing as I watch the hands spin closer and closer to Mom. Not today. When I get there, my heart will be racing as I watch the hands spin closer and closer to Mom, walking through the door. I start to run. When 15 minutes are up, you have my permission to order a shake, because 15 minutes is 10 minutes longer than it should take even the slowest person to walk there from school. Somebody isn't coming. Now, if you need a recommendation, you can't go wrong with the banana and peanut butter shake. Then keep waiting. However long it takes to finish your shake. If 30 minutes go by, start digging in with your spoon so you can get the hell out of there. That's what I did. You're an ass, Marcus. You stood her up when you never even had to ask her out to begin with. It was a fundraiser for Chew Camp. If you didn't want to take it seriously, you didn't have to. 30 minutes is a long time to wait for a Valentine's date, especially inside Rosie's diner by yourself. It also gives you plenty of time to wonder what happened. Did he forget? Because he seemed insincere. I mean, even the cheerleader thought he meant it, right? I keep running. What the heck? There's like little flies everywhere. At least they're landing on me. Yes. I keep running. Calm down, Hannah. That's what I kept telling myself. You're not setting yourself up for a fall. Calm down. Does that sound familiar to anyone else? Isn't that how I convinced myself not to pull my survey out of the box? Okay, stop. Those were the thoughts running through my head after waiting 30 minutes for Marcus to show up, which probably didn't put me in a good frame of mind for when he finally did show up. What the heck? There's a whole bunch of like little fucking flies or whatever they are. I wonder where they're coming from. Because I feel them like everywhere. Well, not everywhere, but hold on. Where are they coming from? They're like, oh no, I don't want to stream. Cancel. There's like a lot. I don't know why they're here. They're like little gnats or something. They've gotta be. Because they're tiny ass, like, probably the size of like a gnat. Okay. Sorry for the interruption, but it is low-key bothering me. High-key bothering me. Gnats. Yeah, they're like... And there's a lot of them on my fucking laptop. I don't know why. They're just like... I don't think they're mosquitoes. And they're not flies, I know that. Tiny flies. Yeah, I don't know how else to describe these. I am sorry, everyone. I'm just like trying to figure out why they're in here to begin with. So obviously I haven't had this problem before. Hopefully it'll resolve itself. Because I have screens on my windows, but they're small enough to like move through the holes on the screens. But I don't believe flies have like that good coordination skills. Okay, I don't see any on my laptop anymore. Feel like this is a good sign. Okay, hopefully it stops, because it is really annoying. Okay, let's continue. Hopefully we can try and continue. Okay. Hopefully it doesn't happen anymore. But I still see them. It's not like they're like a lot, like they're not like flying around in my face or anything. It's just they're like on my bed too. Like I said, they're like gnat-sized types of gnats. I know, I'm sorry. No, they're actual flies. They're not carpet beetles. Otherwise, I'd be more upset. No, these fuckers are actually flies. But they're like tiny, tiny, tiny little flies. Okay, maybe they're not tiny flies. Sorry, everyone, it's just really bothering me. Okay, well, I will resolve this problem one way or another. They're just really tiny fucking flies. I don't know how else to describe it. Can I... Okay. No, that's too fucking blurry. They're really, really tiny. Ugh. But this is a picture. It's really tiny. There's it right there. Right there. I don't know what they are. They're just tiny flies. Like tiny, 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 tiny flies. No, I don't want auto. I just want flash on. God damn it. I don't know either. Yeah, no, if they were bigger bugs, I would be very upset. But they're not. They're just tiny, tiny, tiny little flies. Okay. Back to the story. Okay. Uh... There we go. Last we left off, yeah. Calm down, Hannah. Yeah, calm down, Hannah. That's what I kept telling myself. You're not setting yourself up for a fall. Calm down. Does that sound familiar to anyone else? Isn't that how I convinced myself not to pull my survey out of the box? Okay, stop. Those were the thoughts running through my head after waiting 30 minutes for Marcus to show up, which probably didn't put me in a good frame of mind for when he finally did show up. My running slows, not because I'm out of breath or my legs are ready to collapse. I'm not physically tired, but I'm exhausted. If Marcus didn't stand her up, then what? He sat down on the stool next to me and apologized. I told him that I'd almost given up and left. He looked at my empty milkshake glass and apologized again. But in his mind, he wasn't late. He sure he wasn't sure I would even be there. And I'm not going to hold that against him. Apparently, he thought we were joking about the date, or he assumed we were joking about the date. But halfway home, he stopped, thought about it, and headed to Rosie's just in case. And that's why you're on this tape, Marcus. You turned around just in case. Just in case I, Hannah Baker, Miss Reputation was waiting for you. And sadly I was. At the time, I just thought it might be fun. At the time, I was stupid. There's Rosie's, across the street, at the far end of the parking lot. See, when Marcus came into Rosie's, he wasn't alone. No, Marcus came into Rosie's with a plan. Part of that plan was to move us away from the counter to a booth near the back, near the pinball machines, with me on the inside. Me sandwiched in between him and a wall. The parking lot is nearly empty. Only a few cars directly in front of Rosie's, but none of them are Mom's, so I stop. If you're sitting at Rosie's right now, stay at the counter. It's more comfortable there. Believe me. I stand on the curb, breathing deep, exhaling hard. A red hand flashes at the intersection across the street. I don't know how much of his plan was thought out. Maybe he arrived with just an end game, a goal. And like I said, Marcus is funny. So there we were, sitting in a booth with our backs to the rest of the diner, laughing. At one point, Marcus had me laughing so hard that my stomach hurt. I leaned over, touching my forehead to his shoulder, begging him to stop. The hands keep flashing, urging me to make up my mind, telling me to hurry. I still have to run across the street, jump the curb, and race through the parking lot to Rosie's. But I don't. And that's when his hand touched my knee. That's when I knew. The hand stops flashing. A solid bright red hand. And I turned around. I can't go in there. Not yet. I stopped laughing. I nearly stopped breathing. But I kept my forehead against your shoulder, Marcus. There was your hand on my knee from out of nowhere. The same way I was grabbed in the liquor store. What are you doing? I whispered. Do you want me to move it? You asked. I didn't answer. I pressed my hand against my stomach. It's too much to handle. I'll go to Rosie's in a minute, and hopefully I'll get there before Mom. At first the theater where Hannah and I worked. But first, the theater where Hannah and I worked for one summer. The place where she was safe. The Crestmont. And I didn't move away from you either. It was like you and your shoulder weren't connected anymore. Your shoulder was just a prop to rest my head against while I figured things out. And I couldn't look away as your fingertips caressed my knee and started moving up. Why are you doing that? I asked. It's only a block away, and maybe it's not a red star on her map, but it should have been. It's a red star to me. Your shoulder rotated and I lifted my head, but now your arm was behind my back and pulling me close, and your other hand was touching my leg, my upper thigh. I looked over the back of the booth to the other booths to the counter, trying to catch someone's eye, and a few people glanced over, but they all turned away. Below the table, my fingers were trying to pry your fingers off, to loosen your grip, to push you away, and I didn't want to yell, but it wasn't that hard. Uh, to push you away. I didn't want to yell. It wasn't to that level yet, but my eyes were begging for help. I shoved my hands into my pockets, balled into fists. I want to slam them into a wall or punch them through a store window. I've never hit anything or anyone before, and already, just tonight, I've wanted to hit Marcus. I've wanted to hit Marcus with that rock. But everyone turned away. No one asked if there was a problem. Why? Were they being polite? Was that it, Zach? Were you just being polite? Zach? Again? With Justin on the first tape, falling on Hannah's lawn, then interrupting me and Hannah at Kat's going away party. I hate this. I don't want to find out how everyone fits together anymore. Stop it, I said. And I know you heard me because with me looking over the backrest, my mouth was just inches away from your ear. Stop it. The Crestmont. I rounded the corner and less than half a block away, there it is. One of the few landmarks in town. The last Art Deco theater in state. Don't worry, you said. And maybe you knew your time was short because your hand immediately slid up from my thigh, all the way up. So I rammed both my hands into your side, throwing you to the floor. Now, when someone falls off a booth, it's kind of funny. It just is. So you'd think people would have started laughing. Unless, of course, they knew it wasn't an accident. So they knew something was going on in that booth. They just didn't feel like helping. Thanks. The wraparound marquee stretching over the sidewalk. The ornate sign reaching to the sky like an electric peacock feather. Each letter flickers on one at a time. C-R-E-S. Stupid flies. Where was I? Yeah, each letter flickers on one at a time. C-R-E-S-T-M-O-N-T. Like filling in a crossword puzzle with neon letters. Anyway, you left. You didn't storm out, just called me a tease, loud enough for everyone to hear, and walked out. So now, let's back up. To me, sitting at the counter, getting ready to leave. To me, thinking Marcus wasn't showing up. Yeah. It's unfortunate. Should have, yeah. But he didn't know. He did not know yet. Yeah. Yep. Yeah, Marcus was only ever, even in the series, only there to look out for himself. No one else. And it's funny because in the book, Clay talks about himself um, being almost being valedictorian, but in the series, um, Marcus is I think the student body president, and he's also like valedictorian. So that's interesting. Okay. Uh, so now let's back up. Yeah, Clay was definitely an underdog. I'm getting weird deja vu. It's weird. Oh, hold on just a second. Sorry, I was just looking at something. Okay. We're officially like halfway done with this book. Nice. Where was I? So now let's back up. To me, sitting at the counter, getting ready to leave. To me, thinking Marcus wasn't showing up because he simply didn't care. And I'll tell you what I was thinking then, because now it applies even more. I walked toward the Crestmont. The other stores I passed are all closed for the night. A solid wall of darkened windows, and then a triangular wedge cuts away from the sidewalk. Its walls and marble floor are the same colors as the neon sign, pointing into the lobby. And in the middle of the wedge, the box office, like a toll booth with windows on three sides and a door in the rear. That's where I worked on most nights. For the longest time, from almost day one at the school, it seemed that I was the only one who cared about me. Put all of your heart into getting that first kiss, only to have it thrown back in your face. Have the only two people you truly... Oh, fucking fly. And the fly kind of just like jumped into my book. Yeah. Put all of your heart into getting that first kiss, only to have it thrown back in your face. Have the only two people you trust turn against you. Have one of them use you to get back at the other, and then be accused of betrayal. Are you getting it now? Am I going too fast? Well, keep up. Let someone take away any sense of privacy or security you might still possess. Then have someone use that insecurity to satisfy their own twisted curiosity. She pauses, slows down a bit. Then come to realize you're making mountains out of molehills. Realize how petty you've become. Sure, it may feel like you can't get a grip in this town. It may seem that every time someone offers you a hand up, they just let go and you slip farther down. But you must stop being so pessimistic, Hannah, and learn to trust those around you. So I do. One more time. The last movie of the night is playing, so the box office is empty. I stand on the whirling marbled floor, surrounded by posters of coming attractions. This was my chance, at this theater, to reach Hannah. It was my chance, and I let it slip away. And then, well, certain thoughts began creeping around. Will I ever get control of my life? Will I always be shoved back and pushed around by those I trust? I hate what you did, Hannah. Will my life ever go where I want it to? You didn't have to do it, and I hate the fact that you did. The next day, Marcus decided something. I decided to find out how people at school might react if one of the students never came back. As the song goes, you are lost and gone forever, oh my darling Valentine. I leaned back against the poster, locked. As the song goes, you are lost and gone forever, oh my darling Valentine. I leaned back against the poster, locked behind a plastic frame, and I closed my eyes. I'm listening to someone give up. Someone I knew. Someone I liked. I'm listening, but still, I'm too late. Stop. My heart is pounding and I can't sit still. I walk across the marble floor to the box office. A small sign hangs by the chain. A small sign hangs by a chain and a tiny suction cup. Closed. See you tomorrow. From out here, it doesn't look so cramped. But in there, it felt like a fishbowl. My only interaction when people slid money over to my side of the glass, and I slid back their tickets. Or when a coworker let themselves in through the rear door. Other than that, if I wasn't selling tickets, I was reading or staring out of the fishbowl into the lobby, watching Hannah, and some nights were worse than others. Some nights I watched to make sure she buttered the popcorn all the way through, which seems silly now and obsessive, but that's what I did. Like the night Bryce Walker came. He arrived with his girlfriend of the moment and wanted me to charge her the under 12 rate. She won't be watching the movie anyway, he said. You know what I mean, Clay? And then he laughed. I didn't know her. She might have been a student from another school. One thing was clear, she didn't seem to think it was funny. She placed her purse on the counter. I'll pay for my own ticket then. Bryce moved her purse aside and paid the full amount. Just relax, he told her. It was a joke. About halfway through the movie, I sold tickets for the next show. The girl came out tearing out of the... Yeah, that girl came out tearing out of the theater, holding her wrist, maybe crying, and Bryce was nowhere to be seen. I kept watching the lobby, waiting for him to show, but he never did. He stayed behind to finish watching the movie he had paid for. But when the movie was over, he leaned against the counter. But when the movie was over, he leaned against the concession counter, talking Hannah's ear off as everyone left. And he stayed there while the new people came in. Hannah filled drink orders, handed out candy, gave back change, and laughed at Bryce. Laughed at whatever he said. The entire time I wanted to flip the close sign over. I wanted to march into the lobby and ask him to leave. The movie was over and he didn't need to be there anymore. The movie was over and he didn't need to be here anymore. But that was Hannah's job. She should have asked him to leave. No, she should have wanted him to leave. After selling my last ticket and turning over the sign, I exited through the box office door, locked it up behind me, and went into the lobby to help Hannah clean up, to ask about Bryce. Why do you think that girl ran out of here like that? I asked. Hannah stopped wiping the counter and looked at me straight in the eye. I know who he is, Clay. I know what he's like. Believe me. I know, I said. I looked down and touched the carpet stain with the toe of my shoe. I was just wondering then, why'd you keep talking to him? But, she didn't answer. Not right away. But I couldn't raise my eyes to face her. I didn't want to see a look of disappointment or frustration in her eyes. I didn't want those kinds of emotions directed at me. Eventually, she said the words that ran through my mind the rest of that night. You don't need to watch out for me, Clay. But I did, Hannah. And I wanted to. I could have helped you. But when I tried, you pushed me away. I could almost hear Hannah's voice speaking my next thought for me. Why didn't you try harder? And that is the end of that chapter. And I think this will be the last chapter I read, because it's a little bit of it's pretty long. Well, I think it's long. Whose chapter is it? Yep. Okay. Alrighty. So, the next chapter, respectively, is called... Wow, it took me 130 minutes... Not 130 minutes. An hour and 30 minutes just to read that chapter. Well, I was distracted along the way, so... But yes. The next chapter, respectively, is called Cassette 4, Side A. On my way back, the red hand flashes, but I run through the crosswalk anyway. Yeah, but I run through the crosswalk anyway. The parking lot holds even fewer cars than before. But still, no moms. Oh. Is that supposed to be I think it's supposed to be a not moms, but still not moms. I found a typo, I think. It could be said as no, but still no moms. It doesn't make sense to me. Oh yeah? No, because it reads, but still no moms. Like no mom's car, but so that's why it doesn't make sense to me grammatically. It's no. That's what it is. At least I guess it makes sense if you say it makes sense. Yes. Yeah, but still no moms. Yeah, I don't know about that one. So it might be a typo. It might be not moms. That makes much more sense to me. Because he's talking about the cars. Like, the parking lot holds even fewer cars than before. But still, no moms. But I think it's not moms. So I'm gonna say that instead. Because it doesn't make sense. At least to me. It could make sense, but it doesn't make sense to me. Finally, there's a breeze going into my room. Okay, yeah. On my way back, the red hand flashes, but I run through the crosswalk anyway. The parking lot holds even fewer cars than before, but still not moms. A few doors down from Rose's diner, I stop running. I lean my back against the pet store window, trying to catch my breath. Then I lean forward, hands to my knees, hoping to slow everything down before she arrives. Impossible. Because even though my legs stopped running, my mind keeps going. I let myself slide down against the cold glass, knees bent, trying so hard to hold back tears. The time's running out. She'll be here soon. Drawing in a full breath, I push myself up, walk over to Rosie's, and pull open the door. Warm air rushes out, smelling like a mixture of hamburger grease and sugar. Inside, 3 of the 5 booths along the wall are taken. One with a boy and a girl drinking milkshakes and munching popcorn from the croissant. The other 2 are filled with students studying. Textbooks cover the tabletops, leaving just little room for drinks and a couple of baskets of fries. And I want a milkshake. That sounds good. Thankfully, the booth farthest back is occupied. Where was that? Yeah, thankfully the booth farthest back is occupied. It's not a question I need to consider whether to sit there or not. I think I came across another one. Because if it would be fortunate, then that booth would be unoccupied. But it says occupied. Unless I'm missing something. But yeah, thankfully the booth farthest back is occupied. Not a question I need to consider, whether to sit there or not. Taped to one of the pinball machines is a hand-scribbled out-of-order sign. A senior I sort of recognize stands in front of the other machine, banging away. As Hannah suggested, I sit at the empty counter. Behind the counter, a man in a white apron sorts silverware into 2 plastic tubs. He gives me a nod. Whenever you're ready. I slide a menu out from between 2 silver napkins. I slide a menu out from between 2 silver napkin holders. The front of the menu tells a lengthy story about Rosie's, with black and white photos spanning the last 4 decades. I flip it over, but nothing on the menu looks good to me. Not now. 15 minutes. That's how long Hannah said to wait. 15 minutes and then I should order. Something was wrong when Mom called. Something was wrong with me, and I know she heard it in my voice. But on her way over, will she listen to the tapes to find out why? I am such an idiot. I should have told her I would go get them. But I didn't do that. So now I have to wait and find out. The boy who is eating popcorn asks for a key to the bathroom. The man behind the counter points to the wall. The 2 keys hang from brass hooks. One key has a blue plastic dog attached to it, the other a pink elephant. He grabs the blue dog and heads down the hall. After storing the plastic tubs beneath the counter, the man unscrews the tops to a dozen salt and pepper shakers, paying no attention to me. And that's fine. Did you order yet? I swivel around. Mom sits on the stool next to me and pulls out a menu. Beside her on the counter is Hannah's shoebox. Are you staying? I ask. If she stays, we can talk. I don't mind. It would be nice to free my thoughts for a while, to take a break. She looks me in the eyes and smiles. Then she places a hand over her stomach and forces her smile into a frown. That's a bad idea, I think. You're not fat, Mom. She slides the box of tapes over to me. Where's your friend? Weren't you working with someone? Right, a school project. He had to, he's in the bathroom. Her eyes look past me, over my shoulder. Just a second. And I might be wrong, but I think she checked to see if both keys were hanging on the wall. Thank God they weren't. Did you bring enough money? She asks. For something to eat. She replaces her menu, then taps a fingernail against my menu. The chocolate malteds are to die for. You've eaten here? I'm a little surprised. I've never seen adults in Roses before. Mom laughs. She places a hand on top of my head and uses her thumb to smooth out the wrinkles on my forehead. Don't look so amazed, Clay. This place has been around forever. She pulls out a $10 bill and lays it on top of the shoebox. Have what you want, but have a malted shake for me. When she stands, the bathroom door squeaks open. I turn my head and watch the guy right-hang the blue dog key. He apologizes to his girlfriend for taking so long and kisses her on the forehead before sitting down. Clay? Mom says. Before turning back around, I shut my eyes for just a moment and breathe. Yes? She forces a smile. Don't be out too long. Don't be out long. But it's a hurt smile. 4 tapes remain. 7 stories, and still, where is my name? I look into her eyes. It might be a while. Then I look down at the menu. It's a school project. She says nothing, but from the corner of my eye, I can see her standing there. She lifts a hand. I close my eyes and feel her fingers touch the top of my head, then slide down to the back of my neck. Be careful, she says. I nod, and she leaves. I take the top off the shoebox and unroll the bubble wrap. The tapes haven't been touched. Play. Everyone's favorite class. Okay, everyone's favorite required class is peer communications. It's the kind of non-elective elective. Everyone would take it even if it wasn't required because it's such an easy A. And most of the time it's fun. And I take it just for that. There's very little homework, and don't forget the bonus points for class participation. I mean, they encourage you to yell out in class. What's not to like? Reaching down, I grab my backpack and lift it onto the stool where Mom sat only moments ago. After feeling more and more like an outcast, peer communications was my safe haven at school. Whenever I walked into that room, I felt like throwing open my arms and shouting, "Ollie, Ollie, Oxenfree." I roll the 3 tapes that I've already heard into the bubble wrap and place them back into the shoebox. Finished. Done. For one period each day, you were not allowed to touch me or snicker behind my back, no matter what the latest rumor. Excuse me. Yeah, for one period each day, you are not allowed to touch me or snicker behind my back, no matter what the latest rumor. Mrs. Bradley did not appreciate people who snickered. I unzip... fucking flies. I unzip the largest pocket of my backpack and stow Hannah's shoebox inside. That was rule number 1. Day number 1. If anyone snickered at what anyone else said, they owed Mrs. Bradley a Snickers bar. And if it was an extremely rude snicker, you owed her a king size. On the counter, sitting beside the Walkman and a chocolate melted shake, in honor of Mom, are the next 3 tapes. And everyone paid without argument. That's the kind of respect people had for Mrs. Bradley. No one accused her of picking on them, because she never did. If she said you snickered, you did, and you knew it. The next day, there would be a Snickers bar waiting on her desk. And if there wasn't, I don't know, there always was. I gather the next 2 tapes, blue nail polish, labeling 9 and 10, 11 and 12, and hide them in my inside jacket pocket. Mrs. Bradley said peer communications was her favorite class to teach, or moderate, as she called it. Each day we had a brief reading assignment full of statistics and real-world examples. Then we discussed. The last tape, the 7th tape. Yeah, Let me read that again. Mrs. Bradley said peer communications was her favorite class to teach, or moderate, as she called it. Each day we had a brief reading assignment, full of statistics and real-world examples. Then we discussed. The last tape, the 7th tape, has a 13 on one side, but nothing on the reverse. I slipped the tape into the back pocket of my jeans. Bullies, drugs, self-image, relationships, everything was fair game in peer communications, which of course made a lot of other teachers upset. It was a waste of time, they said. They wanted to teach us cold, hard facts. They understood cold, hard facts. Headlights flash across Rosie's front window, and I squint while they pass. They wanted to teach us the meaning of X in relation to pi, as opposed to helping us better understand ourselves and each other. They wanted us to know when Magna Carta was signed. Yeah, they wanted us to know when the Magna Carta was signed. Never mind what it was, as opposed to discussing birth control. We have sex ed, but that's a joke. Which meant that each year during budget meetings, peer communications was on the chopping block. And each year, Mrs. Bradley and the other teachers brought a bunch of students to the school board with examples of how we benefited from the class. Okay, I could go on like this forever, defending Mrs. Bradley, but something happened in that class, didn't it? Otherwise, why would you be listening to me talk about it? Next year, after my little incident, I hope peer communications continues. I know. You thought I was going to say something else, didn't you? You thought I was going to say that if the class played a part, you thought I was going to say that if the class played a part in my decision, it should be cut. But it shouldn't. No one at school knows what I'm about to tell you. And it wasn't really the class itself that played a part. Even if I never took peer communications, the outcome may very well have been the same. Or not. I guess that's the point of it all. No one knows for certain how much impact they have on the lives of other people. Oftentimes we have no clue. Yet we push it just the same. Mom was right. The shake is amazing. A perfect blend of ice cream and chocolate malt. And I'm a jerk for sitting here, enjoying it. At the back of Mrs. Bradley's room stood a wire rack, the kind you spin, the kind that holds paperback novels in the supermarket. But this rack never held any books. Instead, at the beginning of the year, each student received a paper lunch bag to decorate with crayons and stickers and stamps. Then we opened our backs and hung them on the rack with a couple of pieces of tape. Mrs. Bradley knew people had a difficult time saying nice things to each other, so she devised a way for us to anonymously say what we felt. Did you admire the way so-and-so talked openly about his family? Drop a note in his bag and tell him. Do you understand so-and-so's concern about not passing history? Drop her a note. Tell her you think about her as you study for the upcoming test. Did you like his performance in the school play? Do you like her new haircut? She got a haircut. In the photo at Monet's, Hannah's hair was long. That's how I always picture it. Even now. But that's not how it was in the end. If you can, tell them to their face. But if you can't, drop them a note and they'll feel it just the same. And as far as I know, No one ever left a mean or sarcastic note in anyone's bag. We had too much respect for Mrs. Bradley to do that. So, Zach Dempsey, what's your excuse? Pause. Okay, what happened? Oh God. I look up to find Tony standing beside me, his finger on the pause button. Is this my Walkman? I don't say anything because I can't read his expression. It's not anger, even though I did steal his Walkman. Confusion? Maybe. If it is, it's more than that. It's the same look he gave me when I helped him with his car, when he was watching me instead of shining the flashlight for his dad. Worry. Concern. Tony, hey. I pulled the headphones from my ears and slipped them around my neck. The Walkman. Right. He asked about the Walkman. It is. It was in your car. I saw it when I was helping you earlier today. I think I asked you if I could borrow it. I'm such an idiot. He rests a hand on top of the counter and sits on the stool next to me. I'm sorry, Clay, he says. He looks into my eyes. Can he tell I'm a horrible liar? I get so frustrated around my dad sometimes. I'm sure you asked and I just forgot. His gaze falls to the yellow headphones around my neck, then follows the long cord to the tape deck on the counter. I pray that he doesn't ask what I'm listening to. Between Tony and my mom, I'm doing a lot of lying today. And if he does ask, I'll need to do it again. Just return it when you're done, he says. He stands and places a hand on my shoulder. Keep it as long as you need. Thanks. No need to rush, he says. He grabs a menu from between the napkin holders, walks to an empty booth behind me, and sits down. Play. Don't worry, Zach. You never left anything mean in my bag. I know that. But what you did do was worse. From what I know, Zach's a good guy. Too shy for people to even want to gossip about. And just like me, he's always had a thing for Hannah Baker. But first, let's go back a few weeks. Let's go back to Rosie's. My stomach pulls in tight, working through a final sit-up. I close my eyes and concentrate on bringing myself back to normal. But I haven't felt normal in hours. Even the lids on my eyes feel warm. Like my whole body is fighting a sickness. I just sat there in the booth where Marcus left me, staring into an empty milkshake glass. His side of the bench was probably still warm because he had left only a minute ago, when up walked Zach, and down he sat. I opened my eyes to the row of empty stools to the side of the counter. On one of these stools, maybe this one, Hannah sat when she arrived. Yeah, on one of these stools, maybe this one, Hannah sat when she first arrived, by herself. But then Marcus arrived and took her to a booth. My gaze follows the counter down to the pinball machines at the far end of the diner, then over to their booth. Empty. I pretended not to notice him. Not because I had anything against him, but because my heart and my trust were in the process of collapsing. And that collapse created a vacuum in my chest, like every nerve in my body was withering in, pulling away from my fingers and toes, pulling back and disappearing. My eyes burn. I reach forward and slide a hand down the frosted milkshake glass. Ice-cold droplets cling to my skin, and I run my wet fingers across my eyelid. across my eyelids. I sat, and I thought, and the more I thought, connected with the events in my life, the more my heart collapsed. Zach was sweet. He went on letting me ignore him until it became almost comical. I knew he was there, of course. He was practically staring at me, and eventually, melodramatically, he cleared his throat. I lifted my hand onto the table and touched the base of my glass. That was the only sign he was going to get that I was listening. I pulled my glass closer and turned the spoon inside it in slow circles, softening whatever remains at the bottom. He asked if I was alright, and I forced myself to nod, but my eyes kept staring at the glass, through the glass, at the spoon, and I kept thinking over and over, is this what it feels like to go insane? I'm sorry, he said. I'm sorry for whatever happened just now. I felt my head continue to nod as if it was attached to heavy springs, but I couldn't bring myself to tell him that I appreciated his words. He offered to buy me another milkshake, but I gave no response. Was I unable to talk, or did I just not want to talk? I don't know. Part of me thought he was hitting on me, ready to use the fact that I was now alone to ask me out. But it's not that I completely believed. And it's not that I completely believed that. But why should I trust him? The waitress dropped off my bill and took the empty glass away, soon getting nothing out of me. Zach left a few bucks on the table and returned to his friends. I kept stirring my malted. There's hardly any. I keep stirring my malted. There's hardly any left. But I don't want the glass taken away. It gives me a reason to sit here, to stay. My eyes began tearing up, but I could not break my stare. My eyes began tearing up, but I could not break my stare from the small wet circle where the glass had been. If I tried to utter a single word, I would have lost it. Or had I already lost it? I keep stirring. I can tell you this. At that table, the worst thoughts in the world first came into my head. It's there that I first started to consider a word that I still cannot say. I know you tried coming to my rescue, Zach, but we all know that's not why you're on this tape. So I've got one question before we continue. When you try rescuing someone and discover they can't be reached, why would you ever throw that back in their face? For the past several days or weeks or however long it took for you to get these tapes, Zach, you probably thought no one would find out. I lower my face into my hands. How many secrets can there be at one school? You probably got sick to your stomach when you heard what I did. But the more time that went by, the better you felt. Because the more time that went by, the more likely your secret died with me. No one knew. No one would ever find out. And now we will. And my stomach gets a little sicker. Let me ask you, Zach. Did you think I turned you down at Rosie's? I mean, you never got around to asking me out, so I couldn't officially turn you down, right? So what was it? Embarrassment? Let me guess. You told your friends to watch while you put the moves on me, and then I hardly responded. Or was it a dare? Did they dare you to ask me out? People did that. Someone someone dared me to ask Hannah out. He worked with both of us at the Crestmont. He knew I liked her and that I never found the nerve to ask her out. He also knew that for the past few months, Hannah hardly spoke to anyone, making it a double challenge. When I broke out of my daze and before I left, I listened in on you and your friends. They were teasing you for not getting that date you assured them was in the bag. I will give you credit when it's due, Zach. You could have gone back to your friends and said, Hannah's a freak. Look at her. She's staring into Neverland. But instead, you took the teasing. But you must have a slow boil, getting more and more angry, taking it more and more personally, the longer you thought about my non-responsiveness. And you chose to get back at me in the most childish of ways. You stole my paper bag notes of encouragement. How pathetic. So what tipped me off? It's simple. Really. Everyone else was getting notes. Everyone. And for the most insignificant of things, anytime someone even got a haircut, they got a bunch of notes. And there were people in that class I considered friends who would have put something in my bag after I chopped off most of my hair. When she first walked by me in the halls, with her hair cut so much shorter, I couldn't keep my mouth from falling open, and she looked away. Out of habit, she tried brushing the hair out of her face and behind her ears, but it was too short and kept falling forward. Come to think of it, I cut my hair the very day Marcus Cooley and I met at Rosie's. Wow, that's weird. All those warning signs they tell us to watch out for, they're true. I went straight from Rosie's to get my hair cut. I needed a change, just like they said, so I changed my appearance, the only thing I still had control over. Amazing. Oh shit. I need to charge my laptop, because it's getting to that point where it's getting low. There we go. She pauses. Silence. Just static. Barely audible in the headphones. I'm sure the school had psychologists come in loaded with handouts, telling you what to look for in students who might be considering. Another pause. No. Like I said before, I can't say it. Suicide. Such a disgusting word. The next day, when I found my bag empty, I knew something was up. At least, I thought something was up. The first few months of class, I received maybe 4 or 5 notes. But suddenly, after the telltale haircut, nothing. So after my haircut, I waited a week. Then 2 weeks. Then 3 weeks. Nothing. I pushed my glass across the counter and look at the man down the register. Can you take this? It was time to find out what was going on, so I wrote myself a note. He shoots me a hard look while counting back change. The girl on this side of the register also looks at me. She touches her ears. The headphones. I'm speaking out loud. I'm speaking too loud. Sorry, I whisper. Or maybe it doesn't come out at all. Hannah, the note said. Like the new haircut. sorry I didn't tell you sooner. And for good measure, I added a purple smiley face. To avoid the major embarrassment of getting caught leaving myself a note, I also wrote a note for the bag next to mine. And after class, I walked to the book rack and made a show dropping a note in that other bag. Then I casually ran my hand down the inside of my bag, pretending to check for notes. And I say pretending because I knew it would be empty. And the next day, nothing in my bag. The note was gone. Maybe it didn't seem like a big deal to you, Zach, but now I hope you understand. My world was collapsing. I needed those notes. I needed any hope those notes might have offered, and you took that hope away. You decided I didn't deserve to have it. The longer I listen to these tapes, the more I feel I know her. Not the Hannah from the past few years, but the one from the past few months. That's the Hannah I'm beginning to understand. Hannah at the end. The last time I found myself this close to a person slowly dying, was the night of the party. The night I watched two cars collide in a dark intersection. Like then, like now, I didn't know they were dying. Then, like now, there were a lot of people around. But what could they have done? Those people standing around the car, trying to calm the driver, waiting for an ambulance to arrive, could they have done anything at all? Or the people who passed Hannah in the halls, or sat beside her in class, what could they have done? Maybe then, like now, it was already too late. So, Zach, how many notes did you take? How many notes were there that I never got to read? And did you read them? I hope so. At least someone should know what people think of me. I glance over my shoulder. Tony's still there, chewing a French fry and pumping ketchup onto a hamburger. I admit, during class discussions, I didn't open up much, but when I did someone thank me by dropping a note in my bag? That would have been nice to know. In fact, it might have encouraged me to open up even more. This isn't fair. If Zach had any idea what Hannah was going through, I'm sure he wouldn't have stolen her notes. The day my self-written note was missing, I stood outside the classroom and started talking to someone I'd never spoken with before. I looked over his shoulder every few seconds, watching the other students check their bags for notes. That sure looked like a lot of fun, Zach. That's when I caught you. And that's when I caught you. With a single finger, you touched the lip of my bag and tilted it down just enough to peek inside. Nothing. So you headed toward the door without checking your own bag, which I found very interesting. The man behind the counter picks up my glass and with a chocolate-stained rag, wipes the counter. Of course, that didn't prove anything. Maybe you just liked saying he was getting notes and he wasn't, with a particular interest in me. So the next day, I came into Mrs. Bradley's room during lunch. I took my paper bag off the rack and reattached it with the tiniest sliver of tape. Inside, I placed a little note folded in half. Again, when class was over, I waited outside and watched, but I didn't want to talk to anyone this time. I just watched. The perfect setup. You touched the lip of the bag, saw the note, and reached in. The bag fell to the floor and your face turned bright red. So you bent down and scooped it up anyway. And my reaction? Disbelief. I mean, I saw it. I expected it even, but I still couldn't believe it. While my original plan called for me to confront you right away and right then and there, I jumped to the side, out of the doorway. In a hurry, you rounded the corner, and there we were, face to face. My eyes stung as I stared at you. Then I broke that stare and lowered my head, and you took off down the hall. She didn't want him to explain. There was no explanation. She saw it with her own eyes. When you were halfway down the hall, still walking fast, I saw you looking down as if reading something. My note? Yes. You turned just for a moment to see if I was watching, and for that moment I was scared. Would you confront me and tell me you were sorry? Yell at me? The answer? None of the above. You just turned and kept walking, getting closer and closer to the doors leading outside, closer to your escape. And as I stood there in the hallway, alone, trying to understand what had just happened and why, I realized the truth. I wasn't worth an explanation. Not even a reaction. Not in your eyes, Zach. She pauses. For the rest of you listening, the note was addressed to Zach by name. Maybe he sees it now as a prologue to these tapes. Because in there, I admitted that I was at a point in my life where I could really have used any encouragement anyone might have left me. Encouragement that he stole. I bite my thumb, calming the urge to look over my shoulder at Tony. Does he wonder what I'm listening to? Does he care? But I couldn't take it anymore. You see, Zach's not the only one with a slow boil. I shouted after him. Why? Why? In the hallway, there were still a few people changing classes. All of them jumped, but only one of them stopped. Yeah, but only one of them stopped. And he stood there, facing me, cramming my note in his back pocket. I screamed that word over and over again. Tears finally spilling over, ran down my face. Why? Why, Zach? I heard about that. Hannah flipping out for no apparent reason, embarrassing herself in front of so many people. But they were wrong. There was a reason. So now, let's get personal. In the spirit of opening up, a full disclosure, let me offer you this. My parents love me. I know they do. But things have not been easy recently. Not for about a year. Not since you-know-what opened outside of town. Hold on. Yeah, but things have not been easy recently. Not for about a year. Not since you-know-what opened outside of town. I remember that. Hannah's parents were on the news every night, warning that if the huge shopping center went up, it would put the downtown stores out of business. They said no one would shop there anymore. When that happened, my parents became distant. There was suddenly a lot for them to think about. A lot of pressure to make ends meet. I mean, they talked to me, but not like before. When I cut my hair, my mom didn't even notice. And as far as I knew, thank you, Zach. No one at school noticed either. I noticed. In the back of our class, yeah, in the back of our class, Mrs. Bradley also had a proper bag. Yeah, in the back of our class, Mrs. Bradley also had a paper bag. It hung with the rest of ours in the spinning rack. We could use it, and she encouraged it. For notes about her teaching, critical or otherwise, she also wanted us to recommend topics for future discussions. So I did just that. I wrote a note to Mrs. Bradley that read, "Suicide. It's something I've been thinking about. Not too seriously, but I have been thinking about it." That's the note, word for word. And I know it's word for word because I wrote it dozens of times before delivering it. I'd write it, throw it away, write it, crumple it up, throw it away. But why was I writing it to begin with? I asked myself that question every time I printed the words onto a new sheet of paper. Why was I writing this note? It was a lie. I hadn't been thinking about it. Not really. Not in detail. The thought would come into my head and I'd push it away. But I pushed it away a lot. And it was a subject we never discussed in class. But I was sure more people than just me had thought about it, right? So why not discuss it as a group? Or deep down, maybe there was more. Maybe I wanted someone to figure out who wrote the note and secretly come to my rescue. Maybe. I don't know. But I was careful never to give myself away. The haircut, averting your eyes in the halls. You were careful, but still, there were signs. Little signs, but they were there. And then, just like that, you snapped back. Except, I did give myself away to you, Zach. You knew I wrote that note in Miss Bradley's bag. You had to. She took it out of her bag and read it the day after I caught you. The day after I had that meltdown in the hallway. A few days before she took the pills, Hannah was herself again. She said hello to everyone in the halls. She looked us in the eyes. It seemed so drastic because it had been months since she had acted like that, like the real Hannah. But you did nothing, Zach. Even after Mrs. Bradley brought it up, you did nothing to reach out. It seemed so drastic, because it was. So, what did I want from that? So, what did I want from the class? Mainly, I wanted to hear what everyone had to say. Their thoughts, their feelings, and boy, did they tell me. One person said it was going to be hard to help without knowing why the person wanted to kill himself. And yes, I refrained myself from saying, or herself. It could be a girl. And then others started chiming in. If they're lonely, they could invite me. If they're lonely, we could invite them to sit with us at lunch. If it's grades, we can tutor them. If it's their home life, maybe we can, I don't know, get them counseling or something. But everything they said, everything came tinged with annoyance. Then one of the girls, her name doesn't matter here, said what everyone else is thinking. It's like whoever wrote this note just wants attention. If they were serious, they would have told us who they were. God, there's no way for Hannah to open up in that class. I couldn't believe it. In the past, Mrs. Bradley had notes dropped in her bag suggesting group discussions on Abortion, family violence, cheating on boyfriends, girlfriends, tests. No one insisted on knowing who wrote those topics, but for some reason, they refused to have a discussion on suicide without specifics. For 10 minutes or so, Mrs. Bradley rattled off statistics, local statistics that surprised us all, because we're in juveniles. She said, "Oh, because we're juveniles." She said, as long as the suicide didn't occur in a public space, as long as the suicide didn't occur in a public place with witnesses, they probably wouldn't report it in the news. And no parent wants people to know that the child they raised, took his or her own life. So people are oftentimes led to believe it was an accident. The downside being that no one knows what's really going on with the people in their community. The downside being that no one knows what's really going on with the people in their community. That said, a thorough discussion did not begin in our class. They were just being nosy. No. That said, a thorough discussion did not begin on our class. Were they just being nosy? Or did they really think that knowing specifics was the best way to help? I'm not sure. A little of both, maybe? Good night. I'm not sure. A little of both, maybe? In first period, Mr. Porter's class, I watched her a lot. If the topic of suicide came up, maybe our eyes would have met and I would have seen it. And truthfully, I don't know what they could have said to sway me either way. Because maybe I was being selfish. Maybe I was just looking for attention. Maybe I just wanted to hear people discuss me and my problems. Based on what she told me at the party, she would have wanted me to see it. She would have looked directly at me, praying for me to see it. Or maybe I wanted someone to point a finger at me and say, "Hannah, are you thinking about killing yourself? Please don't do that, Hannah, please." But deep down, the truth was that the only person saying that was me. Deep down, those were my words. At the end of class, Mrs. Bradley passed out a flyer called The Warning Signs of a Suicidal Individual. Guess what was right up there in the top 5? A sudden change in appearance. I tugged on the ends of my newly cropped hair. Who knew I was so predictable? Stop. Rubbing my chin against my shoulder, I see Tony out of the corner of my eye, still sitting in his booth. His hamburger's gone, and as are most of his fries. He sits there completely unaware of what I'm going through. I pop the Walkman. I open the Walkman, pop out tape number 4, and flip it over. And that is the end of that chapter. And that's all I'm gonna read today. Okay. That's... Shoot. And that's where I'll end today. Thank you so much for listening. I will see you, or you will hear me in the next one.